The War of 1812, the Canadian Perspective. G'day guys, how you going? My name is AussieTash. Really looking forward to getting into this video. I'm wanting to learn a lot about so many of the individual Canadian wars. This particular video looks really interesting. I come across it on YouTube. It talks about the War of 1812 coming from the perspective of Canadians, just Canadians, not any outside influences from America or from England, just Canada. But before we do, guys, please make sure to jump on, smash the subscribe button, hit the notification bell for all future videos and live streams. Okay, let's get into it. The War of 1812, the Canadian Perspective. Let's go. Yeah.
We were the meat in the sandwich as far as this war was concerned. The war was between Great Britain and the United States.
Yeah,
but
pretty much.
Because
yeah, that's
the
true.
United States couldn't reach Great Britain, Canada was the stand-in.
Yeah.
In Canada, it was an important war. It helped create a sense of Canadian identity. Indians, whites, British, French Canadians, American loyalists who had gone to Canada, people who you might have thought wouldn't have gelled very well, all came together to help repel the American invasion of Canada.
Yes,
and that
absolutely.
created, to some extent anyway, a sense of a Canadian identity and a Canadian destiny that was separate from the United States.
I like that. A Canadian destiny that was separate from the United States.
For Canada, the lands and the freedoms that the people had worked so hard to preserve were still theirs. There was a greater sense of belonging and allegiance. People knew that they had fought for this, and they felt a sense of cohesiveness, so that there was more of an even greater sense of loyalty.
Yeah. Okay.
If you look at this from the Canadian...
Straight off the bat, did this war define Canada as a whole? Did you guys go, no, that's it, mate? You all got together and said to the Americans, no way, not gonna happen. You can't have our land. That's what I'm getting that they're saying that come from the War of 1812. You guys burnt down the original White House, the Canadian, the British together. Who knows? I've heard so many conflicting stories. But did the War of 1812 forge the history of Canada? Forge the independence of Canada as a nation?
Canadian viewpoint, the United States waged war for 2.5 years against a country that was absolutely no threat to it. Launched a dozen or so invasions against Lower and Upper Canada, burned towns and villages and ruined the economy.
It was a watershed because people who visited the Canadas in the 1820s certainly refer many instances of talking to those who said before the war or after the war. They measured most things by the War of 1812 as a kind of sort of marker, which indeed it was, in leading to the process which 50 years later, in 1867, gave Canada its nationhood.
Yeah. So it did, didn't it? Why would they just go in there and do those things?
When the Americans came to Canada, and they did call the people up here Canadians, they probably didn't understand there were certain cultural nuances that we had a huge block
they had no
of
idea.
French Canadian Catholics in Quebec, but you also had a strong element of loyalist settlers who had left the new United States at the end of the Revolutionary War.
And they weren't sure what was going to happen if the Americans took over the Canada, whereas with
it would
the
have been
British,
scary to think about.
they sort of knew where they were going.
And the British also did a pretty good job spinning the fact that if the U.S. took over all of Canada, that it would be threat to not only their culture and their language, but also to their religion.
The language rights also were very important. And that was one factor. Another factor would have been questions with regards to the rights that they already enjoyed under the British regime, including parliamentary democracy.
Yes.
And, in 1812, women could vote in Quebec province.
In 1812, could women vote in America? I'm not quite too sure. Guys, in the comments, let me know. It's so sad that most wars come from religion, don't they? They really, really do. Oh, I don't want to get controversial about it. I don't want to talk about it, but they all just seem to come from religion or money, don't they? But it looked like America, mate, they wanted Canada. They wanted it for their own. They were going to take over their language, their religion, their politics. They wanted it. And did they go in there and try and fight for it? And everyone in Canada got together, they glued together, and they said, no way, mate, it's not going to happen. From this, I was saying that Americans were in there for 2.5 years. They tried to invade and take over Canada for 2.5 years. How many lives were lost during this time, during this war? Not just Canadians, but Americans as well. And from the sound of it, mate, there was Americans that they didn't want to have a part of the new America, so they defected. They moved to Canada. Did they fight on the side of Canada as well? Did they fight for Canada as well? I'm guessing they did. This is really interesting, intriguing stuff.
Seen as a threat to their language, their religion, their culture. And they put up a pretty good fight through the War of 1812.
Yeah. Myths and heroes.
I think over a long period of time, the Canadians gained something from this because it became part of our founding history. There was a unifying incident that people were able to coalesce around.
Yeah.
You need to have a founding history that you can teach that will unify people.
This goes on to this day.
Yeah.
The Salaberry is still in the school books. Every town in Quebec has a Salaberry street somewhere and a Shadowgate street in another place.
Okay.
Laura Secord, Isaac Brock,
Mm-hmm.
Tecumseh.
They all have Heritage Minutes episodes
as our national heroes.
Yeah.
And all three of those people have something in common. None of them were born in Canada. And probably only one of them might have defined herself as a Canadian.
Mm-hmm.
But the other two certainly wouldn't have.
Okay.
Canada at the time was British North America. A Canadian at the time would consider a British regular soldier one of their soldiers.
Okay.
That attitude continued on in the Canadian psyche. So it becomes Canadians beat the Americans at Kreiser's Farm. Canadians beat the Americans at the Battle of Queenston Heights.
Yes,
Canadians
that's cool, man.
captured Detroit. Canadians burnt the White House.
Yes.
But the British lost the Battle of New Orleans.
Oh, okay. The Canadians won everything. The Canadians burnt down the White House. But the British, they lost. Oh my gosh, it sounded like the War of 1812. It defined Canada as a nation, mate. It started it all off. The Americans, they come in and they said, we want to take over everything, mate. Everyone in Canada at the time, they said, no way, mate, it's not going to happen. And they fought. They fought for the right to have Canada and keep Canada as their own. Oh my gosh, guys, I really, really liked this video. I found it really, really intriguing hearing about the War of 1812 from the perspective of Canadians. I've done a few of these videos. They have stirred up some things in the comments. Guys, if inappropriate comments are in there, mate, I delete them. I do delete them. If you like the video, guys, please jump on, smash the like button, leave a comment, and of course, remember to subscribe. That really helps me out. Cheers to Down Under. Take care. Bye.